Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So when PearlyThings was on Tim Cass' podcast the other day, she said that when women go to college, they have less kids. So she said this as if it was a bad thing. And this made me realize how she's a huge hypocrite. Because she's college educated and has no kids and is unmarried. Okay? Her longest relationship was only a year and a half. So she doesn't practice what she preaches, and it's so nice after you've gone through college and your daddy paid for it all and you are not necessarily drowning in debt and poverty, and you always have a rich daddy to fall back on. It's really easy to slam college, right? And she has her own career. So she has a career to fall back on, and she's not fully financially dependent upon a man. So when she slams women for wanting to go to college, when she went and she makes money on Rumble and YouTube, has a career, well, now we see she is not a traditional woman, the kind that she tries to promote. She hasn't walked away from the huge podcast. She's mingling with men and attacks women for sport. And so she's not necessarily somebody who should be slamming women for going to college. Now, what is interesting is that you have this phenomena of the TLC Duggar family, this Christian cult. They have over 19 children. They just had a huge scandal. And I started thinking about how in my family, my great-grandma had over 10 children. One of my aunts had 12 children. Most of them had a lot. Now, once you get to a certain number of children, you're just having children. You're not really raising them. You're not spending quality time with each child individually and meeting their needs. It's not just about quantity, but it's about quality. And I love huge families. I think it's awesome how Russia has this award for women who have had many children. I posted about it months ago. So I love large families. My husband, who's from Mexico, his mother had over 10 children. So huge families are a great thing when you have the right family unit. And when you are properly able to invest time and guide and protect each child. In today's age with social media, trying to police the phones of 5 children is hard enough. Trying to help them with homework, go to the events that they do, like sports or whatever, and not have jealousy and rivalry is quite difficult. Once you get to have a certain amount of children, if you're not in an agricultural setting, it can be very different, because when you're in the city, the kids want to go out and have fun because they're locked inside tiny apartments, homes with tiny backyards. When you live in a farm or in nature, they can go walking and exploring and whatnot. They're not just stuck inside playing video games or scrolling TikTok. So if a mom who just had a baby is investing a lot of time in tending to the little one, you can have the children help, but at the same time, the needs of each child are going to vary depending on their age. And for a mom to have that many kids, she's also very dependent. I started thinking about how my great-grandma stayed with an abuser. He took the virginity of several of his daughters. There was incest, molestation, and whatnot. He was a Christian type of preacher. He also drank a lot. He was a hypocrite and very bad. And I always wondered, why did my great-grandma take so long to leave him? She had no money, no education, and it was hushed and frowned upon to divorce. So she stayed for a long time to the detriment of her children. She was miserable and unhappy. Then my grandma was so mentally scarred from that, she tried to get married. She got married early at 14, had a child, didn't finish school, had to depend on him. He went to the military, came back kind of weird and drank a lot. And then my grandma tried to remarry again, had a children, didn't work. One of her husbands ended up getting into drugs, and then she finally met my step-grandpa, who was a hard-working man from Canada who was a veteran, and they're still together over 20 years later. I mean, they raised me. I was raised with my grandparents since the age of 3. And I only lived with my mom for a small fraction in my high school years. And my mom, because she was raised by my grandma who was, traumatized from being molested by her father and penetrated by her father, she was very damaged. And my mom went into, as most girls do, from broken homes and dysfunctional homes, to the sex industry. Being an escort, a showgirl, a stripper. She did all that. And I was taken away by my uncles at the age of 3 and given to my grandparents. So I didn't get to have a mom. Now I spend all my time with my children, guiding them in Islam, studying, cooking for them. Wonderful full-time mom. Now, how many generations did it take to fix the broken family? Great-grandma, grandma, mom, me, right? I had to do my best to survive. And now I have my children, so 5 generations who are still alive. Great-grandma's still alive, everyone's still alive. So it took 5 generations to repair somebody staying in a bad marriage. So people divorcing can cause problems, and also people staying in dangerous, unhappy, unstable relationships because of the stigma around divorced women and how religion can be used to oppress women. This is a very big problem. And so we have to look at the nuance of it. My great-grandma was unable to really provide mental stability for all of those kids she had. And it takes a toll. My husband's mother, she did a great job in raising her children, but it was extremely difficult, and she did it in the rural jungles of Yucatan in Mexico, in a very small village about 2 hours out from Peto. So if you hear these women, it's a very difficult life, and she did this with no washing machines. They didn't have a TV. They didn't have that kind of fancy electricity. They actually lived in a real hut. So these women, when you talk to them, is quite difficult, what they go through. So looking at the American version and then the Mexican version, either way you square it, there's going to be some type of immense burden placed upon the women. And so it's not just about having kids and recovering and never letting your body heal and never actually letting your kids get older without producing more like rabbits. It's really important for women to give those kids a better life. And if a college woman only has 1 or 2 kids, there's still a lot of people on this planet and a lot of infertile people. And I would highly recommend that women who can't have children go to college and do something to serve humanity. There's nothing wrong with that. They don't just have to be shoved inside and humped on once in a while by a man. They can have some goals they want to help to make the world a better place. There's a lot of problems we got going on in the world, and women can help fix things. They can. I do agree that it's wrong to always think that women were solely created for the pleasure of men. It's not a healthy way to look at it, especially when the men say, oh, women over 30 for recreational only. Single mothers are dating a single mom is like, being with someone's used underwear or playing somebody's saved game. Like the things they say, no wonder why these women are absolutely terrified. And then when you hear some of these red pill manosphere people talking about, and even some of these cultish Christians, not the mainstream Christians, but the particular fanatical cults, like some that I've shared before from Twitter, they actually think that even if somebody puts a knife to your throat, you should stay. If someone beats you, you should stay. And the trend of going after young girls who are minors is because they're easier to provide for, they are not as intelligent, and they can't identify and resist abuse as effectively. So it's not necessarily about saving them from fornication, but rather they are the prime targets for mind control and to really trauma bond and dominate them until they're older, right? As my grandma can attest, I remember her being so upset saying that, he shouldn't have been, Douglas was his name, Douglas shouldn't have been anywhere around my school. She regretted, getting married so young at 14, having her first kid at 14. She wasn't capable of being a mom, healing from that, all the work that comes with being a mother. If you see a woman who's 22 suffering with postpartum depression, insomnia, healing from stitches, either stitches around her area because she could have torn from a C-section, the hormonal imbalance, it's quite difficult. And so many babies get neglected because the mothers were not really ready to have them, right? So it's about the children. How are the children going to have a life under a woman who is not mentally ready to be a mother? Having sex doesn't mean you're ready to be a mother. I wish it was the case, but it's not. And so it's important that moronic pick-meshas like PearlyThings not shame women for not having many kids. I want women to have children. I've made tons of videos on that. I mean, literally hundreds of posts on Instagram in unique ways, through poetry, through kindness, motivational type of posts, you name it. I have really tried to help women not abort their children. I've done quite a bit in activism and trying to get women to soften their hearts towards being a mother and towards their children. However, I have realized that it's wrong to encourage every type of woman to have children, because some of them are going to be terrible mothers. And if you want to go down a darker rabbit hole, the foster care system is filled with sexual abuse. Growing up, I knew a lot of girls from foster care, and they all had horrible stories to tell. So we cannot sit here and pretend like the adoption agencies and foster cares are perfect. And a lot of girls who grew up in foster care go into sex work because they don't have a mom and dad. And life is better than death and non-existence. That is true, but some of these women should just be on birth control, should not have kids. Now, a bad woman can give birth to a good kid. I think I'm different than my mom, and I'm different than my dad. And I'm a better mom, and I hope to be a better grandma and a better great-grandma than the women who came before me. But it took generations to fix that. That's why there's such a thing as generational warfare. The weakest link in the chain that can break a mighty dynasty. Somebody who can totally give an arrow to the stability of the family. Who can take out a pillar and make the building collapse and fracture. There's so many different analogies and symbolism in tales of old and just common sense examples and metaphors that we have to remind us that a bad mother and a bad father can scar people for life. If you listen to people in their Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous meetings, it's always connected to the mother or the father. So encouraging women to just have kids for the sake of having kids doesn't help anybody. Some people should just go to college, dedicate their life to knowledge, have 1 or 2 kids, and that's it. We don't need everybody having 5 kids, especially if no one wants to be farmers. No one wants to have that kind of agrarian lifestyle. They all want to have luxuriousness. Then we're going to have a problem. More of a case system. Not everybody can be at the top. And so we have to be mindful and not shame women who don't want to have kids. The hatred of kids is different than not wanting to have them. I've argued against feminists who literally don't like children and who are very cruel towards them. And I remember I told you that I was going to post the screenshots from the group of Reddit where they literally are abortion fetishists, and it can totally just soul crush you. But I know people can't handle as much sadness as me. But there was these women who got pregnant just for the sake of getting abortions. And so these women are super wicked. And they film it, they put it on TikTok, you name it. There's some evil women who should just be sterilized, just get their tubes tied. They should just be on birth control and not have any kids. So we should be very cautious. And there are some women who, I don't see anything wrong with them dedicating their life to medicine, to infrastructure, or whatnot, and they don't want to be with a family. And it can be lonely for anybody. And some women, I remember Sheikh Asim Al-Hakim, he got a comment about how's a woman gonna be when she was asking him advice how to deal with the loss of her 4 children. She had 4 kids, all die before the age of 10. And he was talking to her and gave her hadiths about, a mother who loses kids before they reach puberty, she's a martyr, she gets paradise and all that. And I was thinking about how many women have wanted to have kids, they died, and they have to have hope at something else in life because their children are gone. And so they have to find something to fill their time. So if you say that kids are the only purpose for women, period, then that leaves out Aisha, who never had kids, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not have kids with all his wife. Isa, may Allah be pleased with him, didn't have kids, and he didn't have a wife. So we have to be balanced in perspective in this. I mean, polygamy is great, especially for single mom and divorced women and getting widows and all that, and people in war-torn areas, spouses. But we have to also remember, if you're going to have 5 kids with each woman, how much time and love and attention are you giving to those kids? Or are you raising broken, dysfunctional beings that are going to cause corruption on the earth? So we have to be mindful about, it's about how you put in time in guarding and protecting them, not just having kids so that you can brag that you have a lot of kids. And I think that TLC show, 19 Kids and Counting, is proof of that. The lady just stayed getting pregnant and neglecting her kids, and now her kids are rebelling against her, and they're a Christian cult. So PearlyThings is wrong to shame women for going to college and not having many kids. College is not evil because you don't have kids. Rather, you should say college should make accommodations for women who have children. So different flexible hours, lower tuitions, maybe they could have an on-site play daycare thing. You can make college better for moms instead of saying don't go at all. Because the men will mock women for being stupid and then shame them from going to college. They'll say, we don't care about your intelligence, but then turn around and say, well, look, women are stupid. That's proof that they're inferior and we need to dominate them and lead them. It's fascinating because the women spend a lot of time with their children. There's a lot of way to get educated online. I'm not a big fan of going thousands of dollars into debt to go to college. I think you can learn online schools, from the library, you name it. There's so many different ways. I've always advocated for that. But if somebody wants to go and get a structured path towards a diploma that they can afford without going into riba, into interest banking, then why not? You see what I'm saying? It's fun to dunk on college, but women do have the right to go to college if they so please. They can segregate themselves, avoid hanging out with the men at school. But if someone wants to go into the STEM sciences, or she wants to go to a culinary arts college, why not? If she wants to go and learn some type of finance so that she can help provide for her children if anything happened to her husband, why not? There's a lot of women who can't depend on men. Okay? I couldn't depend on my father. I couldn't depend on my grandfather. I have to depend on my husband, but I also depend on myself. Okay? That's why I worked from a very young age as a child, helping my grandfather clean carpets. We sold things at the flea markets. I would rake the leaves. I would clean the gutters. I would shovel the snow. I learned how to participate in sustaining the family. So we have to have room for the girls who aren't princesses and have everything handed to them on a golden platter. You can talk about ideals, but you have to talk about the real world that also exists. There will never be a time when every woman gets to have the luxury of staying home in wealth. And so we have to encourage women to be traditional, but also not shame those who can't. And I think there's a balance, and I've always tried to achieve that balance. So I don't think it's right that PearlyThings dunks on college when she herself went to college, and she is not traditional, and how she dresses is not traditional. The way she talks to vulgar men like John Zehra, who's a hypersexual degenerate, how she mingles with harlots to bombast them because they're making money, it's not really the traditional lifestyle role. And so we cannot shame college just for the fact that women have less kids, because not everyone should be a parent. And some women do have some way to help the world. And it's a lie to say that women cannot help improve the world. That's a lie. That's untrue. It's empirically untrue. And it's a nasty thing to say to women, to degrade them to the level of they're just there to be humped on, and they're just there to be an accessory to your manhood. Because there will be tons of women who will have to live on after their husbands have died, and they'll have to find strength in finding a purpose outside their relationship. So women can lose their children and their husband, and they're going to have to find a way to find value in themselves and hope to continue further. That's what's so ironic, is that so many women will have to find a way to keep going and not to end their life, because they have to find a way to serve. They can serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, serve their communities, and find some way to press on even after they've lost their kids to cancer, to a car accident, a husband to war, a husband to some other trauma, maybe heart failure, heart attacks. People die for a number of reasons, so we cannot shame women for trying to find a purpose outside worshiping the male phallus. Okay? You want women who love children to have children. You don't want women who hate children to have it for the sake of having children to fit a societal norm. Because the child will suffer. The child will suffer. So what's best for the children is very important to examine in its different expressions and degrees depending on the nation, the country, and the economic stance of the woman. But I myself prefer the new lifestyle I live now, which is being a stay-at-home mom, reading, educating, cooking, taking care of my household. But I only appreciate it so much so because I've been working all my life. You see? So I get to look and say, okay, I retired myself. When the woman gets to retire and be provided for and have her feminine self more out there. So it's important for us not to shame the women who they don't want to be the cozied up woman. And some men today, they actually don't want to provide everything. And so we have to understand the kind of world we're dealing with. You can encourage them, but the way PearlyThings goes and encourage it is bad, because she shames women for going to college, but then tells women that if they are a single mom, they don't deserve a monogamous marriage. She also tells them that it's okay for men to cheat if they have money and if they're high status. So she's making women more afraid and doesn't realize it. So argue me that. I'm going to go hang out with my baby. Let me know what you think.